A lot of people use that word stuck, and I often rephrase it for them and I say, are we stuck or are we just unwilling to make a bold decision?
Who doesn't want to be a great leader? A leader who's calm under pressure, insightful, respected, well-liked. But what does it take to become a great leader? Hey, I'm Boo, and welcome to my podcast. The Few Leadership Podcast defines great leadership and what great leadership looks like. And I've found some of the world's best leaders or experts in the field of leadership to help you accelerate your leadership journey so you can be an ace at the game of leadership. If you're ready to rethink everything you know about leadership, if you're excited about accelerating your leadership journey, let's strap in and ignite your leadership potential. Welcome back, team, to another episode of the Few Leadership Podcast, the speaker series. And we have an awesome guest on here today. Before we jump into that, though, if you're listening to this again and you forgot to like this podcast on your podcast platform, or you're watching it on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, please do so, because it's through the popularity of the podcast we get to speak with such awesome people like Brett today. Brett Eaton, welcome to the Few Podcast. Man, I'm pumped to speak with you today.
I am excited to be here, Boo. This is going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate you.
What I love about you, mate, is you have nailed a philosophy that I've embraced my entire life. And that is about being uncomfortable. And I love how you phrase it in that you're uncomfortable either way, full stop. I don't want to go into that right now. With what you're seeing in the world right now, what is holding back leaders, the people on this podcast, from achieving their full potential?
You nailed it. It's this comfort crisis that we're in. There's a great book called The Comfort Crisis, but it's just at every turn. And I think it's what started with, Uber Eats and Netflix has now trickled into the boardrooms and the team rooms, and comfort is at every turn. It's just so easy to not only find comfort and complacency, but we're being fed it through everything that is making our life easier. Now, don't get me wrong. If something can be easier and we can get the same output, let's do that. But I think what we're losing is we're choosing this comfort and complacency, and it's not giving us the outcome that we're looking for. It's making life easy today, but harder tomorrow. So there's this concept that, I've really found fascinating. And, throughout my whole life, there's the through thread of when you choose the uncomfortable now, it makes easy tomorrow. When you choose hard now and you do the hard thing, we've talked about a couple of these offline here, but when you do it, it makes life easier down in the future. But if you choose easy now and continue to choose the easy road, you're usually left with hard that is not just hard, but it's bigger and usually worse.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have one of my clients is the third largest dialysis provider in the US. And they were saying sort of 75% of the people that are on dialysis don't need to be. It's due to lifestyle choices. It's due to eating too much, not exercising enough, having too much sugar. It is just living a sedentary kind of life. I guess really kind of what you're saying here is there's kind of acute discomfort, and then there's chronic discomfort. And I think there's that uncomfortable in your own skin, which is when you feel like you're anxious about a situation, you're putting something off, you feel like a fraud. You've listened to a soundbite, but you didn't make the effort to read the book. You've got this kind of paradox of discomfort. What inspired you to kind of go down this rabbit hole and kind of define being uncomfortable in this way?
When I look back on my life, Boo, there are just a couple of pivotal moments that I have traced back to, I always like to know, why am I, as humans, we love to know why we are the way we are. How much came from our parents, how much came from the way we were raised, how much came from our environments, how much came from the people we were around, and how much came from the circumstances that we were dealt, or the hand that we were dealt. And I have just traced back all of these kind of fork in the road moments of, and I didn't call it this at the time, but these two choices where it was, do I keep going down one road where it's easier now, but probably not going to give me the thing I want? Or do I go down the uncomfortable road that is probably going to give me the thing that I want? I know what it's down there, but it's going to be harder. And to me, as soon as I rephrase this or put it in a position where I realized that they were both uncomfortable, all of a sudden it made making the harder choice a lot easier, because it was painting a picture to me of, well, that one comes with growth. Well, that one comes with more rewards. That one comes with the things that I say that I actually want. The other one just keeps me sedentary, keeps me complacent, keeps me right where I am, but it doesn't come with any of those rewards. So it's uncomfortable, but it's keeping me stuck. And a lot of people use that word stuck. And I often rephrase it for them. And I say, are we stuck, or are we just unwilling to make a bold decision? And that's really where I believe it'll really get clear for you which path you should be taking.
We have this word in Australia, it's called gunner, that people are gunners. Like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to, it's this deferral of effort in that I want to be this and I'm going to do that. But the reality is the intention just remains an intention forever. In one of my favorite, bands, In Excess, and I say to my team all the time, yeah, it's great to get the big speaking engagement. It's great to get the big ticket, but you got to play the dive bars. You've got to jam. You've got to basically do just almost anything for free and invest in the zero return, painful effort stuff before the reward comes a little bit later. You said something, and I don't know whether you said it intentionally or subconsciously. Well, first of all, you and I are very aligned, which is that intention has to be action, right? Like, the action part is the real magic in intention. But you were saying something like, I'm going to make the hard decision for this. I'm going to do something difficult for that. So, and my personal story is, I always wanted to be a fighter pilot, and I was a little kid. I wasn't very, I hated exercise and I was bad at school. But everything I did that was hard was because I had to demonstrate that I was athletic, some sort of leadership skills and some sort of intellect in order to pass through the gateway to even be considered to be a fighter pilot. There was a massive intention, 17 years, right? And it finally happened. Talk to me a little bit about intention and expectation, and how, I guess everyone uses that story of, I want to run a marathon, but I just don't want to I don't want to do the first mile and the pain, right? So how does one get into a position where they see the value of the discomfort?
It's getting clear on what you really want. Oprah Winfrey has a great line of, why are some people so driven and some people struggle? And it's like, the driven people know what they're driving for. They know what they're going after. And defining success for yourself is very important. I think a lot of times we just look left and look right, and we start chasing what the herd is chasing, right? We start chasing what everybody else is chasing. And what I have found through high performance coaching, when I got into that field, it was the greatest gift that I never thought I would get. And I like to use the phrase, my whole life, I've been in crystal ball professions that I didn't realize. When I was in the fitness profession for almost a decade, I had the ability to train people in their 20s and in their 50s and in their 60s and their 70s. I trained people who worked for themselves. I trained people who worked 9 to 5s. I trained people who had taken care of themselves for the last 30 years. I trained people who were just starting to try to get back into shape at 65. And I got to see a lot of things before I was living them myself. I got to see a lot of repercussions of decisions that I didn't have to necessarily experience myself. And it was enlightening to me as I moved into high performance coaching. And then all of a sudden I saw people set these gigantic goals, and my job was to keep them accountable, to set the timelines, to make sure that we were disciplined and following through with the plan. And what I found through that is there were some people who would accomplish things and would celebrate like crazy and be so happy, and their whole life would change. And on the flip side of that, people would chase down this success that they'd been chasing for years and wouldn't celebrate for a second. Life just would move on, and they realized that they were chasing success that didn't actually impact their life. They were chasing something that had been given to them by somebody else. Yeah,
and I guess there's that dysfunctional high performer, and there's a functional high performer, right? The dysfunctional one is proving themselves, trying to fill a hole, and the functional one is on that committed journey. And I'm sure what you got good at in fitness, and I've had this experience, the difference between a good trainer and a phenomenal trainer is, I have a love-hate relationship with exercise myself. So I tend to have a dry spell and then go back and get back into it. And I remember this one time in my mid-40s, I was trying to lift and expecting the kind of gain curve to be what it was in my 20s. And my trainer just said to me, "You're 45. Like, you have to reset the benchmark of what good looks like. And that's what we're trying to achieve now." And even that small expectation management made it more enjoyable, because I wasn't trying to achieve something that was unattainable in terms of expectation. And I think, there's that goal. I want to be a rock star. I play music in school. I want to be a rock star. That's a pretty friggin' massive dream, right? And is there a correlation between the size of the dream and the amount of discomfort you have to experience?
I love that question. And I love to phrase it like this. The people who struggle to dream big, it's because our brain can't correlate our discipline today with how much discipline it's going to take to achieve something big. So there are some people who can just dream really big and they can set these massive goals and they can plan for 5 years in the future. And it is unwavering to them because they can just see the stepping stones that it would take to maybe get there. The people who struggle to set big goals or to accomplish big things, it's not because they can't. It's because right now their brain, when they are trying to paint this picture and imagine this thing happening, their brain is going right back and their mind is going right back to the discipline that they're having right now. And if they're saying, well, I keep telling myself I'm going to wake up when my alarm goes off instead of snoozing 6 times, and I don't, and I say I'm going to start working out and I don't, and I say I'm going to start the business and years have gone by and I've never done it. Well, what happens is your brain is now saying, if we can't do these little things, how are we ever going to stack enough of those follow throughs and those habits to be able to do something massive? So what happens is you just stop thinking big. You just stop dreaming big because your brain is now telling you like, hey, we can't even focus on the small stuff. I can't even imagine the discipline it's going to take to get there. That's the difference. And it's a sad thing because you don't want somebody to stop dreaming, but that's why it's so important to do these small little follow throughs. And I always tell people, hey, commit to less and follow through at an incredibly high rate. And if you can commit to less and follow through at a high rate, you will gain everything in the world that you need. You'll gain confidence, you'll gain momentum, and you'll start to see yourself moving forward, which is a game changer.
Yeah, I think that's critical. It's funny because it's like a subconscious just give up, right? You just become this beige vanilla kind of human being. I just want to explore something because what you say could also be contradicted in that the pathway to big dreams is small things, but we can't do the small things. And it's like, how do you do that then? I mean, how do you not snooze through your alarm? How do you reprogram that? And let's talk to the people who are listening now who are maybe in their mid 30s to mid 50s, and they've made that decision. They've given up, right? It's almost like, I guess some people use the excuse of humility sometimes, and they've said, I know my place in the world, and I'm comfortable with that. I mean, that's a big log to move out of the way.
Yeah, we don't like to play games if we don't think we can win. And think back to any time, like the last time you played a game or something, you probably sat down to play it or you went to play it, whether it's pickleball or chess, because you thought you had a chance to win. Very rarely do we like to say, oh, I'm going to go play that game and I have zero chance of winning. It's just not really exciting for us and it's not inviting. Let me give you an example here. I was working with a client named Ashley and she was really struggling in this one area. And the funny thing is that the reason we got her to succeed was I just convinced her to take shots every morning. Let me explain what I mean. Well, when I was in the fitness industry, every client that I worked with, the first thing that we would do was we'd start drinking water. It was a low-hanging fruit, but it was allowed us to have a lot more energy. It was good for our skin. It was good for digestion. It was good for everything. And it was something that everybody could start like the second we started working together. Move to high performance, I would still work with people. Same thing. Let's start drinking more water. Let's make sure we're hydrated, right? That's just like an easy thing, get out of the way. Let's make sure that's not the reason we're tired and our energy sucks. So what happened with Ashley was I would have everybody take a 16-ounce glass of water and put it on their counter in the morning. They'd wake up. The goal was to, either sip it or chug it. And I say people are either sippers or chuggers, depending on where you went to college or how you grew up, your high school friend group. But Ashley would go and she'd see that 16-ounce glass of water and she'd take a sip and she put it down. It was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to drink this much water. So she would grab her coffee and she'd go on her way. By day 2 or 3, she wouldn't even take the one sip because, again, it was a game that she didn't think she could win. So she didn't even want to play. So over the phone, I said, Ashley, do you have a shot glass at your house? And she laughed and she said, yes. Why? I said, I want you to fill up a shot glass, just 2 ounces of water. Put that in front of your coffee machine. Tomorrow morning, I want you to go rip that shot, grab your coffee and go. Just 2 ounces. She woke up the next morning, saw the shot glass there. She giggled to herself. She ripped the shot, grabbed her coffee, went on her way. After a week of that, I said, Ashley, let's do 2 shots. Okay. 2 shots, 4 ounces of water, and let's go on your way. Without changing anything else other than those 2 shots, a week after that, she gives me a call and she says, Brett, guess what I did? I said, I bet you drank 16 ounces of water today, didn't you? She goes, I did. How'd you know? All of a sudden, we were playing a game that Ashley thought she could win. And by doing it in shot glass version, all of a sudden, okay, I'm just going to take 8 shots. That gets me at 16 ounces. But it's also training her to feel we made the game smaller. She could win 2 ounces. She could win 4 ounces. She could win 6 ounces. And eventually she could win 16. But jumping right into 16 was not a game that she could win. So she didn't want to play. So my advice to the listener out there is if you're trying to set this goal is shrink the game a little bit so that you feel like you can win. Because if you don't, you won't even want to play.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's my philosophy with the gym. It's not don't go to the gym to work out. Just go to the gym. Just go there.
Let's go.
Just go.
And for somebody, it might just be just lay out your clothes. Just put the sneakers on, right? Just get in the car and then watch like the ripple effect of those small decisions start to add up.
Yeah. And this is where I think you establish credibility as a peak performance coach, because that is the key. That is the key to growing a business. That is the key to becoming better at sales. That is the key to making cold calls, making 30 cold calls a day. Oh my gosh. Just make one.
Yes.
Just make one. And then neurochemically, a win is a win, right? So whether you win an egg and spoon race or whether you win one, there is positive movements in your neurochemistry. There is good dopamine being released, right? And that feels good. And that is manufacturing a reward system, right? Now, I'm going to ask you something else though. You're winning, you're taking your shots, you miss 2 days and you start to lose again. What do you do?
In the book, I call that, and can I curse on this show?
Of course you can.
Okay. In the book, I call that the fuck it button.
Yeah.
And it is this big, beautiful red button, super shiny, neon lights, and it is just dying for you to hit it when you've messed up a little bit. And I'm still doing research on where exactly that comes from, but it usually comes from some sort of perfectionist or a parent that, maybe we got an A- and they weren't happy, right? So all of a sudden, if we don't think we can get this goes back to the same theory, but if we don't think we can do really well, again, doing partial credit isn't exciting to us. But where that comes into play, and a lot of people are like, hey, I'm all in or I'm all out. That's great for like mindset. It is not really great for momentum and for consistency, right? Because when somebody tells me they're all in, I can probably assume that they are also going to be all out. And when are we all out? Usually when it's harder. So what I'd rather do is how can we stay consistent when it's hard? And then when it's easy, we can dominate, right? So trying to build up some of those smaller wins and those smaller types of, and even if it's check the box, we don't want to live our life checking the box, but checking the box is a great way to get through the hard moments. Right now there's some things in my business that are like taking up a lot of time. So there are some times at the gym, it's like, hey, today, I didn't max out. I didn't do anything great. It wasn't super sexy. It was probably the most basic workout ever, but we checked the box and I can still walk out with momentum. I can still walk out with confidence, but more importantly, I walk out still convinced that I'm the person who I say I am. Because if I say that I'm fit and that fitness is important to me, checking the box achieves that.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically saying just doing is winning.
Just doing is winning. Just live to fight another day. Live to fight another day, and the confidence is there. And we don't get more confidence from having a killer crushing workout than we do from checking the box, but we do lose confidence by not even checking the box.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophy, because I have the same thing with my team on terms of budget for jobs. Like they get a commission based on, the ticket that they sell. So they're always striving for big tickets. And my philosophy is you're better off living to fight another day and getting the job at a lower price.
Yeah.
But doing it for a reason, because you never know the next amount of impact you're going to make. And what may start as something small could grow into something big, but big's never going to be there if you're not in the game.
Absolutely.
But to your point, sometimes the decision is just, it's more comfortable not to do it, right? And it's more comfortable to get on my phone and start scrolling Instagram and start reading the news. And then all of a sudden, wow, I have no kind of mojo to do anything. So how do you, because, it sounds easy, right? Just start small, just do this. But there is this innate human need to just sit in a cave because we're engineered to be safe and not to be out hunting, because, in the much broader span of humanity, when we did things, there was a much greater probability we would die or get really hurt from doing it. So there must be some kind of internal program that, from a survival perspective, maybe that makes us kind of feel like comfort is the right decision.
Absolutely it is. Because like you said, back in the day, we would get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger if we did the wrong decision, right? So there was a much higher risk of discomfort or getting uncomfortable. And then that's where all of a sudden, Uber Eats comes into play, Netflix comes into play, and, we don't even have to leave our couch. Most people work from home. Like, you don't have to change out of your pajamas all day, and you don't have to leave your couch if you don't want to. That's why at this moment in time, I truly believe that if we don't intentionally seek out ways to get uncomfortable, and I don't even like the phrase get out of your comfort zone. I like the phrase expand your comfort zone. Let's get more things inside of our comfort zone.
Man, you're the only human on earth that has said that. It is exactly, you and me are brothers from another mother. I tell you.
I love it.
I love it. The same, like outside your comfort zone is fear. Outside your comfort zone is primal structures of the brain. Just keep growing it. And, the fighter pilot way of training is just that. Every day you slightly expand your comfort zone, and once or twice they'll deliberately put you outside your comfort zone. And the reason is they want you to say, stop. I'm outside my comfort zone. I've lost the ability to think rationally. I'm going to do something stupid. All right, that's it. End of podcast. All right, if you're listening, get Brett in. This dude is on the money if you genuinely want to reach your performance benchmarks. Man, I love that. Sorry if I cut you off, but
no,
that was sweet, man. It was like,
the last thing on getting outside of your comfort zone is it also feels temporary. I'm going to just jump out of my comfort zone real quick, and then I get to sprint back into it. But if you expand your comfort zone, there's just more experiences that come from that are now going to be inside of your comfort zone. So I love that when you expand it, it doesn't necessarily have to retract. You expand it, and now all of a sudden you're living more life in things that are not going to feel so uncomfortable or cause you so much discomfort. So it's finding out those moments. But man, that's, again, back to confidence. Expanding your comfort zone feels like a confidence boosting activity. Yep. Where getting out of your comfort zone feels like this is going to be terrible. Why would I want to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. And there is something innate in human beings that we cannot shape the difference between, it's again, let's use the marathon, right? I want to run a marathon. The first day I run 16 miles and I get shin splints. I bust my Achilles. I have an injury, and that's it. And it's like, well, I can never run a marathon. And it's like, well, no. You just did it the wrong way. You just bit off way more than you can chew. What you want to commit to is the journey of becoming a marathon runner. That's the goal, right? And the big goals, and I'm sure you've achieved big goals in your life, it's a fleeting moment. Like you cross the finish line, you got a buzz for an hour, then it hurts. And then it's like, oh, damn, I'm never doing that again. Not waiting to the process.
To me, it's no different whether, and this is I've done a lot of physical challenges in my life, but writing a book was one of the first really mental, I just want to say first mental, they're all mental, but it was the first where all of the training is just sitting and a slow grind of a process of writing and editing and writing and editing and writing and editing. And there's really nothing to show for it. And what I realized through the process is now that the book is finished, the book is really for everybody else. The book is for everybody else. The messages are to help other people. But the process and the growth that I gained from having to go through this 2-year process of writing this book is something that I really gained. The second part of that, I want to talk about what you said of like, oh, I sprained my ankle. It's like, I'm just not a runner. The language that people choose is really important when it comes down to how you view things. Somebody who's like, I've always been, that becomes this permanent thing that we're now establishing. Oh, I'll never be able to. I've always been. I've never been good at. As opposed to maybe some incidental progress. Oh, I sprained my ankle because I didn't warm up properly. If I warm up properly next time, I can avoid this. Oh, I had to walk during the first couple miles. Okay, well, that's because I am new into this training routine. As I gain my endurance up, I won't need to walk. That little bit of change in making something just this isolated incident versus this permanent mark on who you are as a person is also huge. And are we going to try again? Are we going to give it a second try? Well, if it's permanent, why would we keep trying? If it's this incidental, isolated incident, all of a sudden there's so many different ways that we can still win that game.
If you're enjoying the show, I'd just like to ask you a little favor. We're on a mission here to ignite the world's leadership potential. We need to reach out to as many leaders as we possibly can. So if you're enjoying the show, I just ask you to leave a review, to subscribe, to help introduce this podcast to other leaders to join you on your journey to flawless leadership. We're going to head back to the episode now. I hope you've enjoyed what you've learned today. Please remember, let's ignite a movement of flawless leaders. Subscribe, leave a review. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, I love it. Tell me a bit about performance, right? That's a word that is an interesting word, yeah? And particularly when you put high in front of it and you end up, I'm sure it's the same for you, when a company's talking to you, they say, I want you to come in and talk to my high performers. And my thought is, well, why isn't everybody? Why is it just this kind of select few that are considered high performance? Maybe give some insight to us on how you define that word.
Yeah, recently I've changed my approach to high performance a little bit. And here's why, because nothing has changed my life, expanded my mindset, had a positive impact on me and forced me to grow like high performance. And at the same time, there have been moments of my life where nothing has made me feel more inadequate, like I wasn't doing enough, like there was never going to be a finish line and that I was never going to actually win like high performance. So there's this dichotomy. And a lot of times I'll stand in front of a room and I'll say, what does high performance make you think? And I'll take out a marker board, and half of the comments are positive and half of the comments are negative. People will say, winning, it'll say discipline, they'll say all these positive words. And then they'll also say, frustration, never ending. And all of these negative words. It's about 50-50. So the reason why I try to change the approach to it a little bit is high performance isn't this thing that we're going to reach and there's going to be this finish line. High performance is how can we continually be looking for ways to improve? And that is not just from a physical performance standpoint, but it's also from a thinking standpoint, from a learning standpoint. Everybody's like, how do we work smarter? Well, I believe you have to first work hard and then you can learn how to work smarter. You need enough data to know that you're working hard in the right areas or what areas are working and what aren't to be able to start to how to work smarter. So high performance is individualized. I don't think there's just, everybody's going to be a high performer and everybody's going to do it this one way. The reason why I love working with different leadership teams and different, individuals is I love the puzzle. I love figuring out the individual puzzle. If I wasn't this, somebody asked me once, Brett, what do you think you would do? And I'd probably be a detective because I think I like figuring out clues. I like putting pieces together that don't seem like they go together. And I love unpacking what makes somebody tick, what motivates you, where's your fears come from, what inspires you, what makes you want to do better. That's really where I think high performance has gone wrong, is it's become this thing where, there's some great motivators out there on the planet, but I think a lot of people look and they're like, I'm never going to be that way. So maybe I'm not a high performer. I think everybody can be. You just have to figure out, what does that even mean to you? What does high performance mean? What does it look like? And change the word high performance. What does a successful day look like for you? What does feeling productive look like for you? What does a great day in health look like for you? If we can figure that out and we start hitting that more consistently, guess what? You turn into a high performer. Don't worry about looking left and looking right. Let's really kind of narrow down. And I'd rather there's 8 people on a leadership team. Let me talk to each one individually before I talk to the team. And then we'll figure out how to get everybody performing better.
And I think, the word to encompass that is just to be curious, right? There's 2 elements to it though, because you said you got to do the work before you get good at the work. You got to do the work before you figure out a way how to do the work better. And underpinning that is action, right? You can't think about the work. You can't think about how to be more efficient. You can't. And I think one of the challenges with leaders as you move up the stack is a lot of your decision making is based on what you think is happening, not what's really happening. And I had a phenomenal D1 coach on the podcast a few weeks ago. He was sort of saying when he was a young coach, the mistake he made was he would coach the team. And then what he realized is, actually, I've got to find the expectation of each member of the team. They've got to see their personal win in the team. And then once I've coached every individual, now I can coach them as a team. And I think one of the challenges with leadership and team dynamics is we get caught up in this. You've got to collaborate. You've got to give everyone a voice. You've got to, but it's all me. None of it is like, okay, well, when this is all done, what happens? When you do all this work, what does it mean to you? And I had a conversation yesterday on the podcast about Debbie Downer and how, Debbie was a high performer, but was an absolute downer all the time. And personally was doing a great job, but everyone else poo-pooed everyone else's ideas, and the question was, why there's this perception, that you're not happy here. Why aren't you happy? And she goes, because I'm not growing. And it was like, okay, well, what does good look like when you grow? Like, how do you know that you've grown? And it was like crickets. And it was like, I don't know. And it's like, well, to your point, that's where it starts.
That's such a great story. And that D1 coach should be coaching in every boardroom in America with that strategy. Because that strategy,
he does now. Yeah.
he should be, because that's spot on. The Debbie Downer piece is really important. It's finding out what growth looks like for somebody. And again, we talk about expanding the comfort zone. How can we do that for Debbie here in this example of how do we figure out what growth looks like for her? How do we challenge her in a way that continues to get her growing and getting her challenged? And more people quit jobs, not because they don't like the pay or they don't like it. It's because they stop feeling challenged. That's one of those human needs, is we want to feel like we are growing. Now, that is a phrase that I want to double tap on, because a lot of, if I asked a room full of anybody's and said, yeah, who here is growth minded? Everybody's hand would raise their hand, right? Nobody wants to call themselves closed minded. Nobody really likes to admit that. But if I asked you, okay, Boo, over the last year, what were some, give me 3 specific areas where you grew this year? You'd probably be able to tell me. A lot of people wouldn't.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they're growth minded, and then I ask them where there's opportunity, where have they grown, or where have they expanded their comfort zone in the last year? And a lot of people will be, again, crickets, and be looking around being like, well, it's 7 months into the year, 6 months is done. I don't know. I'm 6 months older. So they assume that they have grown. No, you just gotten older. So figuring out those moments, and there's a great term that I'm sure you've heard called a misogi. And it's this one physical challenge that you do every year that you have to train for it. And because it's so physically demanding and mentally demanding, that it changes you for the whole year. And I try to do one of those a year once I've learned about this. And last year it was doing 29-0-29, which is Jesse Itzler's great, expanding program where you're not actually on Mount Everest, but you hike the elevation equivalent of Everest in 36 hours. So it's a grueling hike where you're hiking miles just straight up. You got your poles and you're hiking through the night, and it's like a really epic event. And it's so dang, it seems like you're just hiking, but it's so dang hard and takes so much training that like you're thinking about this event for the rest of your year. And every time you face a challenging moment, you look back and you're like, well, it's not as bad as hiking up that 2 miles straight up north vertical in the middle of the night. It's not that hard. So in the book, I call it raising your hard ceiling. And
I love that.
When things start to get challenging, or you start to feel like things that used to not be hard are now getting hard, to me, that's like an alarm that's going off. That's like the bright breaking light that says, hold on, warning here, that your hard ceiling is starting to drop. And that's why I love once a year doing it doesn't have to be physical, but I do think physical is a great way to do that, where you're training for something and you do some really hard thing, and all of a sudden your hard ceiling goes up. And that is where all of a sudden all these other things now don't feel so hard anymore. So it kind of recalibrates your hard scale.
Yeah, I think there's loads of opportunities outside physicality for your hard ceiling. And I think when someone is in a big matrixed organization and they're a leader and they can't get their job done because people outside their hierarchy are in their way. And, I kind of say to them, I said, look, the only reason it's not getting done and changing is because no one's doing it. And it might take you 8 months to affect this change in your business. But if you just become the champion and everyone is complaining about the same thing, and you make the effort to get the right people on the call and you influence them and you show them the win and you stick with it all the way, 8 months later, all of a sudden, the thing that's stopping everyone in the company, because it's the company and it's what the company does, becomes done. And in itself, that is a high moment for people. That is highly visible. That is, so to your point, I don't think hard needs to be, well, I'm certainly not going to do that Everest thing. I've done some hard stuff. It just sounds horrible. And to the expanding comfort zone, it might be walk the 4 hills that are within a 10-mile radius of your home, and then, I did 4. Now I can do 6. Or now I can do the 4 peaks challenge. Now I can do the 6 peaks challenge. Now I can go and do the 12 peaks challenge.
Same as the shot glasses, Boo. It's the same as the calls that you mentioned earlier. Start with 1 call. Now you did 1 call. 1 call isn't scary anymore, right? That's within your comfort zone. Now you make 5 calls tomorrow. Now all of a sudden you start building yourself up. So it all comes back to, are you playing a game that you think you can win? And go back to that. That's a great place to go back to. It's the same as when somebody says, Brett, I've kind of lost my performance. I've lost my flow. I've lost my motivation. My question is, I'd ask you the same question as if you lost your keys. Where was the last place you had them?
Yeah.
Where was the last place you were in flow? Where was the last place you were crushing? What did that look like? What were you waking up to? What time were you waking up? What were you doing? What did life look like? Now, granted, life changes for us all the time. It might not be as easy to just go back to that. Maybe you have a kid now. Maybe you have 2 kids. Maybe whatever it may be. But I always go back to, man, success leaves clues. And the best place to figure out like how to get back to something is just put yourself back in that moment and say, what was I doing? What was I feeling? When people are growing businesses, sometimes the early days, even though it's chaos and it's hard and it's wild, was like more exciting than sometimes they get into the actual, major parts of the business years later. What was so exciting about those early days? What was so exciting about the decisions? What was your vision set on? What were you thinking about on a daily basis that made it so fun and exciting where now it just feels like work? How do we get back to that?
Yeah, look, you're a young dude, mate, compared to me, and when I, for me, again, just having a great trainer and one of the things about what's your goal in terms of what do you want to lift? What do you want to do this? And I'm like, dude, I just want to be healthy. Yeah. I just want to be healthy. That's what I want. I don't want to come here and set the world on fire. I don't want to come in here and do before after pictures. And he's like, okay, cool. Have you got an Apple Watch? No, buy an Apple Watch. Close your rings every day. All right. Close your rings every day. And make sure you close your workout ring at least 4 times a week. Just do that. And then we want to get, what's your resting heart rate? Right. Why don't we get it below 70? Why don't we just say that your resting heart rate is below 70, therefore you're healthier than you are now because it's 82. And what's great about that, and I think to go to the comfort and go to the technology and go to all of these great things we have to make life easier, there's a lot of stuff out there that can make performance easier too, right? Like we can measure all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely, there is. Using it to your advantage, not your disadvantage, and you got to figure out where that is. I mean, I just asked ChatGPT to create a packing list for me because we're going somewhere for a couple of days, and I was like, I don't really feel like thinking through this. Hey, I'm going for this many days. This is the weather. This is where we're going. I'm going to work out 3 days. We're going to go on one nice dinner. Put my packing list together so I can just go through. And it was amazing. I was like, why have I not been doing this for so long? There's all those little kind of things in there. Now, maybe in 10 years, you're going to say, Brett, you've lost the ability to pack for yourself. And maybe that'll turn into a problem. But for now, it is making life easier for me.
That's why we get married. We'll get someone that can do that.
That's exactly right.
Stuff, pack our bags.
100%. So I like the line no 0 day when it comes to progress, because people think that a perfect day will move the needle for them so significantly that it makes up for a lot of zeros. And I don't believe it does. I wish more people understood that a perfect day doesn't move the needle incrementally as much as a 0 day diminishes your progress, because it kills momentum. It just stops all the progress that you've made. And it's also, like you said, 2 0 days. Now all of a sudden it feels like we're trying to, gain the momentum back from a ground zero. So, and I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, but I've heard somebody say that it's either a jet or a rocket or something uses way more fuel at takeoff than it does once it's up in the air.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. You're the pilot, so maybe you would know that. But that makes, if true or not, I like the idea of it because it makes sense. If you can just prevent yourself from stopping, you don't have to, again, use all of that extra energy to get ourselves moving again. What if we just went to cruise control, right? What if we just downshifted to a much slower pace, but we were able to stay a little bit more consistent and just, again, keep that momentum on your side?
And the world has some weird way of working. I don't know how, I'm not a neuroscientist or any great experience how the body works. Some days you just switched on.
Yes.
Some days it you just on fire. And then there's other days that are just the last 2 days for me have been like almost 0 days. It's like zero energy. And I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, man, I just have nothing in the tank today. I have nothing. Like, I mean, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. I feel like going to bed. I was because I'm bed at 7:00. I don't know, but you unpack it and it's like, well, that's because I spent the entire weekend from top to bottom rebuilding our entire proposal deck for our team. Like just all in because it's been bugging me for a year and I just did it myself. And I guess the problem with performance is sometimes you get that buzz and you're so in flow, you don't realize. We call it, in aviation medicine, we call it sleep debt, right? Like you need 8 hours a day, whether you kind of know it or not. And if you're taking 2 hours a day out, you're actually got 4 hours of debt. It's not just catching up 2 hours is not enough. And maybe, there's something to that in performance as well. Like too many 0 days is like debt. And
yeah,
you need more to pay it back. But to be in the game to show up. And like a leader, you're having a bad day at work, right? The key for you as a leader is to be present, to be human. And maybe that's just not the day to do the deep work. Maybe that's just not the day where that you're anticipating. So tell me a little bit about, so we spoke about the shot glass in the morning. So let's go to the week, right? So let's say we need to do something this year, right? So now we can frame the daily action, the no zero day into a week. Because I definitely feel that with, going to the gym, right? Like particularly if you have those real high energy days, a Monday and Tuesday, you're on fire and your body's like, oh, now you got to repay that.
Yeah.
And you go on Wednesday and you're like, oh, like I can't even lift the bar. And I think that happens mentally as well, right?
I think it definitely does mentally. It's knowing a little bit of your own mentality a little bit when it comes to that. There are some people who could stop for 3 days, come right back on and turn it back on. And it's like this, the switch was on. And then there's like the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants of the world that you see the book back here is they play 82 games in a regular season, NBA season. And what I love about them is they were always trying to, because that seems like a lot. That seems like a lot. Baseball even more. But what I love about them is they would find some mini game to play in the bigger game. In the grand scheme of the season, it was only one game. But they would find some player on the other team that was drafted before them or that was getting more publicity than them or, had a really good game against them last year. And now all of a sudden they would make it personal and they would find some little game within the game. In the grand scheme of the year is a long game. And I like to think of the year as a long game. But to win the long game, you have to win a lot of these short games. And if you think of each week as a short game, there's 52 of them. And we have to win a lot more of those games than we lose. You could break the week down to seven of those small games as well. Figuring out how to win the games, but I like to focus on needle moving activities. And this goes back down to clarity. If you know what moves the needle for you, then you know that you're spending your time in the right place. But each Sunday, I do a process called the Sunday setup, and it takes me 30 minutes, and it's probably the most impactful 30 minutes I spend in my week because that 30 minutes on a Sunday probably saves me somewhere between 4 and 5 hours throughout the rest of the week, if not more. And it's because I know what is going to move the needle for that week. I have a little mini, call it a first down. I know what the first down is for that week, that if I keep getting first downs, eventually, guess what? You're in the end zone. So figuring out what is going to be your winning of the week. And I love that I can write some things down. And as I go by, I check them. Of course, throughout the week, sometimes you're adding things too. But where people get thrown off is they fill their week with a bunch of busy stuff and get to the end of the week. They don't really feel like they moved the needle because they didn't know what was moving the needle. And guess what? Life will fill your plate with you if you don't carve out space for the things that are important.
Yeah, I love that. It's I love Guy Kawasaki's quote, the hardest thing about getting started is getting started, and breaking it down into that first win. And I do think Sunday is an underutilized time for people, right? Before we wrap it up, I want to talk about one other thing when it comes to performance, and that's rest. It's easy to just keep going. Like, tell me how you incorporate rest into your kind of performance game.
Yeah, that's where this is where high performance, I love the phrase, love the term, but you'll hear one high performance coach say, if you're not up at 5 a.m., you don't care about success. And if you're not, if you're not grinding through it, like you shouldn't be tired if you have passion and all this stuff. And then you'll hear another guy say, oh, well, sleep is the number one performance indicator for, success and for growth and for your health and your relationships. And if you're not sleeping 8 hours, then you must not care about any of those things. So we're left here like, well, what the heck are we supposed to do? When are we supposed to rest? I think this comes back to kind of what your archetype is. Are you the tortoise or are you more the hare, right? Are you the tortoise who's just going to slowly pick a pace that you're like, hey, I know I can crush this pace and it's right in my wheelhouse and I'm doing the same stuff every day and it feels really good and every day I feel like I'm winning? Or are you the hare who is going to go through these bursts of sprint, but you're going to need some rest? And I was listening to Alex Hormozy the other day and he was talking about, he's similar to me where we'll just go. And then sometimes we'll just like take a full day off. And it might be in the middle of the week, but we don't beat ourselves up because we don't think that that's a permanent change. Yeah. Right. Like live in this moment of this might just be I'm tired today. I'm going to sleep a little in today. Oh no, I missed the gym. Oh no, I missed this thing. Oh no, that's it. I'm going to be I'm going to be out of business and I'm going to be 70 pounds overweight because I missed the gym today. Don't let your mind go too crazy with you, but also you have to be able to look in the rearview mirror and see proof. Have I done this before and then got back on track? Great. I'm fine. have I taken this day of rest and recharged and come back even better? We just took a trip to my mother's house for her birthday, and she lives in Virginia Beach, and she's on the beach, and my nieces and nephews were there. And my wife and I on the flight back home were just saying, man, that was so fun. Like, I didn't touch my phone for like 2 days. I was just totally disconnected, was really deep present with my family. It was awesome. And I came back being like, that's exactly what I needed. I got a little bit more sleep, didn't go to the gym for 2 days. We played in the pool. We swam in the ocean. We ate lots of birthday cake and things. And now I'm back and I feel ready to be locked in again.
Yeah.
Figuring out what kind of your cadence is that allows you to push when you push and be able to give yourself a little bit of an all-star break or a rest season when you need it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, as we wrap up, looking for 3 key takeaways that the folks listening on the podcast can do first thing in the morning. You're not allowed to use water. That's a great one. Years ago, someone told me you should have 2 glasses of water. I think in Australia, our glasses are smaller. Yeah. And again, spoken to a lot of high performance people, and people forget how important hydration is to performance.
Yes.
Right. So water, everyone have 16 ounces of water every morning. Okay, cool. So that's a freebie. Give us another 3, Brett.
So I'm a big snooze button guy. And by that, I mean, I was a habitual snooze buttoner for a long time. What I have found, and there's some real research behind, the snooze button is actually destroying your sleep. Well, you think you're getting an extra 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but there's this thing called sleep inertia. And every time you go to hit that sleep, your body thinks it's going back into another sleep cycle. And then 10 minutes later, it wakes back up again. And then 10 minutes later, it wakes back up again. So you think you were in bed for 30 minutes and all you did was set yourself back 30 minutes and you've made yourself more groggy when you actually do wake up. So what I tell people is like, again, I don't care, boo, what time people wake up. Just set your alarm for the time you need to get up to accomplish the things you need to do in the morning and just wake up when your alarm goes off. It is not just a great habit because I believe it's like the first commitment you made to yourself every day.
Yeah.
And if you phrase it like that, the snooze button becomes this opponent that you want to win. You don't want to lose that first battle of the day. And then also, again, it'll just really impact your sleep in a positive way by just waking up once. So that's number 2. And the third thing I would say is try to find some silence before you dive into your day and before you either go full steam ahead. I love the drive to the gym in the morning. It's usually dark. It's quiet. I don't put on the radio. I don't put on anything. And it's just my kind of time to myself. It's about probably 10 minutes. And it's just long enough for me to kind of set my intention, go over some gratitude, be appreciative of the day that I have at hand, maybe go through my small checklist of what's going to move the needle for me. And you pair that with a good snooze, no snooze button, great drink of water, and a little bit of silence to kind of start your day. And I don't mean, meditating, eyes closed, knees crossed. I just mean maybe it's outside. Maybe it's drinking your coffee while stepping outside, breathing some fresh air. But to me, that is a really good ground setter for, hey, today's going to be a good day.
Yeah, that silence thing's really interesting. About 20 years ago, I met a guy, spiritual healer, who wasn't a spiritual healer. He was a very, very wealthy property developer, but he just was he just was one of those folks. And he said, look, when you go for a run, don't wear your headphones. Just run for an hour and connect to the sounds of nature. And just don't look at your run as something you've got to grind through. Look at it as time to yourself and to reconnect. Hey, Brett, man, that was awesome, man. We could keep going. Well, I'm like 10 minutes over 10 minutes over the flex that we have in there. So we do 30 minutes, give us 45, and here we are 55 minutes later. So I think
I love it.
Till the end of the day. But mate, look, thanks a lot. I'm super grateful for you to take time out of your day to come and share, your phenomenal insights, and you can see the life experience in your destination there. And I just think that people have lived it and then they've learned it and have that curiosity to reflect on life and what worked for them and didn't. I think that's just so valuable for the world. So, Brett, if people can't scroll down into the show notes where all your information is, if you're listening to this and they're in their car and they've got to zip into the meeting, how do they find you? How does everyone find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much Brett Eaton everywhere. BRETTEATON. BrettEaton.com is my website. Brett Eaton _ on Instagram. Brett Eaton on LinkedIn as well. And by the time this comes out, we'll be wrapping up the pre-sale and my book will be available. It's called Uncomfortable Either Way: Why Choosing Easy is Making Your Life Hard. I think it's going to be great for leaders. It's going to be great for people looking to really lean into the uncomfort that gives them the big reward instead of leaving them with regret.
Awesome, mate. That is just phenomenal. All right, everyone, before you tune out and turn the podcast off, quickly like whatever platform you're listening to this on And if you really got time up your sleeve, which you probably don't because we went for too long, make sure just leave a quick review. Hey, what Brett said today was awesome. Yeah, I really got something out of it. That would be fun. Brett, once again, thanks a lot, mate. And I just wish you the very best on your journey. You've got so much value to bring to the world.
I appreciate you, Boo. This was a lot of fun, man. Thank you for having me on.